Hello, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here today. So if you haven't checked out my last video, it's a pretty cool one that I did where I talked about all the books I loved as a teenager, which you can check up there. I also have a bookstagram and Twitter if you want to see extra content. Yes, it is a new camera, I completely forgot to tell you. I bought the EOS 80D. It was time for an upgrade, and with the new year coming, I have a lot of content planned. Let's hope 2021 is gonna be better than this year. So throughout this week, I'm planning to upload a week every day until Christmas, and you get to see more content from me for this week. So in this video, I'm going to talk about everything I watched in 2020, which is a lot. We had a lot of time at home and a lot of TV to catch up on. Now, I'm not going to include the ones I already talked about. I made two previous videos about the things I watched, and I will link them up there if you want to check it out. I won't be talking about them here because there's quite a lot. So anyway, in this video I'm going to talk about all the movies and come tomorrow to see all the TV shows that I watched. Most of the movies I watched this year were around 3 to 4 stars. Most of them, there were quite a big, quite a flops here and there, which I will get into. But most of them were around 3 to 4, like a few 5-star rating. I also have a Letterboxd account, which is like a movie app where you can track all your movies, add them to a list. It's like a social media app where you can track everybody's movies. You can follow them, you can add reviews, you can rate, all of that. You should check it out. It actually helped a lot when I was making this video because I don't remember what I watched, but a lot of the movies that I did, they were all in Letterboxd, and I had put all my initial thoughts on it, so it was easy to like remember what I thought about it, and all the ratings were already there. This is in no particular order, but the first one I watched is The Sun Is Also a Star. Now this is a 2019 highly anticipated movie. The story follows two New Yorkers who meet and fall in love in a day. Yes, a day. Let's not pull at that thread on paper. But as you can imagine, the romance kinda ruined it for me. The thing is, they only focused on the two main characters, and the rest were just like side characters who were like very one-dimensional. And I think in the book they had more of like more substance. Especially Daniel's brother. I think he was a fleshed out character in the book. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. Next I watched Miss Americana, and this is the Taylor Swift documentary that we all needed. I absolutely loved it. The best thing about this documentary was it had nothing to do with her music. It was all about her life, how she dealt with all the hate. It's raw, genuine, and gives out a great message about how our minds can create false realities. Watching this documentary kind of showed us how she found herself and how she found a partner who loves her through all of it, and that is, I feel so happy for her. There's a difference between being a good girl and doing the right thing, and you see that a lot throughout this documentary. I highly recommend it. Give it a 5 stars. The next movie is P.S. I Still Love You, and that is the second installment to the Lara Jean trilogy, which was adapted by a book written by Jenny Han of the same name. For those of you who don't know, the Lara Jean trilogy revolves around Lara Jean, who writes like 7 love letters. I can't remember how many, and she hides them away in her closet, and she never reveals who she wrote them to. Like whenever she gets a crush, she would write a love letter and she would hide it away. That's how she kind of gets over the crush as well. And one day, like someone lets those letters out, and they get delivered to the crushes, and they come and talk to Lara Jean, blah blah. Like, a lot of shit happens. But the second installment is she ends up with this guy called Peter, one of the crushes. And the second movie is about them figuring out their relationship, like going on their first date, all of that, until, surprise surprise, you need a competition. And then this other crush, who was a childhood friend of Lara Jean, John Ambrose, he comes into the picture. Now nothing kind of happens when with this dude coming into the picture, because she never doubts her feelings for Peter. It is the same shit as Twilight. Like, this competition is completely unnecessary, but it was there. But I will say, compared to the first movie, this is a huge upgrade because the characters are very comfortable in their roles. And although it's young love and I rolled my eyes like throughout the movie, but it was very well done for that genre, and it was well executed. The songs are nice, the settings. It's a good movie. It just wasn't for me, and I gave it 3 out of 5. Next one is 1917, and this movie deserved an Oscar. It was fantastic. The story follows 2 soldiers in World War One, and they're tasked with crossing enemy territory to deliver a message that could potentially save 1,600 lives. One of the soldiers in that troop is one of the 2 soldiers' brother. I'll tell you, the story is very simple, but they have not wasted a single scene, single shot, or single dialogue. The conversations the two have on the way is all you get, and that is more than enough. You don't see any flashbacks or how their lives were before they joined the war or before this scene. The point is, like, it doesn't matter. Like, what matters is the story they're telling now and what's happening right now. They also capture the futility of war perfectly. They've actually had to rehearse for 6 months before they shot the movie because of the way it was shot. Because this one shot it takes about 30 minutes, and if you like screw up in the middle, you'll have to go all the way back to the beginning and shoot the whole thing again. It's no surprise I gave it 5 stars. I would give it more if I can. It was such a good movie. Next up is Charlie's Angels, and this is a remake of the movies that we grew up watching. It was one of those mindless movies with fast cars, great outfits, corny lines. It was okay for me. It wasn't the best, but I was pleasantly surprised with Kristen Stewart's acting. Like, she's a great actor, man. Twilight ruined her, but I'm so glad that she's been recognized. It's not the greatest plot, and they were trying so hard to showcase this strong female woman trope, which I don't really like, so I gave it a 2 out of 5. Next up is Just Mercy. This movie came out earlier this year, and it is about a young lawyer fresh out of college named Brian Stevenson, played by the brilliant Michael B. Jordan. He takes on his first case. The client is Walter Macmillan, a young black man who was sentenced to die for the murder of a young white woman that he didn't commit. The book was written by Brian himself. While I enjoyed the book, I actually preferred the movie. It was brilliantly done. There were some mixed reviews out there with people saying that they were spoon-feeding this racism instead of showing it, which I don't agree with at all. Like, this was a true story, and many of the scenes in the movie depicts things exactly as it happened. It was a great movie. Watching it reminded me of why I wanted to become a lawyer in the first place. This movie will make you angry, especially in that last horrific scene of Walter Macmillan, which was perfectly done by Jamie Foxx, who plays Walter. The viewer is forced to be uncomfortably conflicted and frustrated about the justice system. It was a great movie. I highly recommend you all check it out. I gave it 5 stars. Next up is Golly Boy. This is a 2019 movie I watched earlier this year, written by Zoya Akhtar, who is a fantastic filmmaker. I love Indian cinema. I don't particularly like the romance genre, which seems to be the most popular even among the Western crowd, but there are some really great movies in Bollywood if you bother to check it out, and Golly Boy is definitely one of it. Like, this movie took like all the Filmfare Awards, which is the equivalent to the Academy Awards, including Best Film. So this is a rap musical about a lower class Muslim guy determined to break free from the chains of expectation from his family and his class. Indian hip-hop is so underrated, and I'm telling you, some of these songs were even better than the English tracks that I've heard. The soundtrack is a masterpiece. The story not only deals with the struggle to follow your passion when it goes against everything expected of you, it also subverts common tropes like the Bollywood hero, the damsel in distress, and arranged marriages. Ranveer Singh did a fantastic job portraying a man 10 years younger than him, and he raps like a pro. And Alia Bhatt brought the sarcastic, rebellious charm to his gentle, kind smile. I gave this movie a 5 out of 5. The next one is Knives Out. This is a Agatha Christie style murder mystery. and it follows the murder of a wealthy mystery writer and the family that gathers for his birthday. And the next morning he turns up dead. They write it off as suicide, but an investigator, played by Daniel Craig, shows up to investigate as he has been paid by an anonymous party. The movie is funny, witty, and so engaging. And the cast is the best thing about this movie. They have great casts including Jamie Lee Curtis, Michael Shannon, Donnie Johnson, Catherine Langford, and of course, the beautiful Chris Evans. It is a well-rounded cast and they're very natural in their roles. I was more excited about watching how they interact rather than the actual storyline. Because although the storyline was good, it wasn't as riveting as seeing how the characters interacted with each other. I gave this a 4 out of 5. Next up is Extraction. This is an action thriller starring Chris Hemsworth, which I randomly saw on Netflix and just started to watch. So it's about this black market mercenary who is recruited by a fellow mercenary to rescue a kid from Bangladesh. I've always wondered what it would be like if Hollywood movies were made in South Asia. And I have to say, they did a pretty cool job. Like, the movie's a beautiful blend between Hollywood and Bollywood, and it's so refreshing to see how these two come together. Like, I really love the action. The color grading is a little weird, but honestly, that's just me nitpicking. All in all, it's a pretty good action movie. And if you watch the movie, like, you know that the final scene, that actually made me really smile. But I do believe that it's not him. And I gave it a 4 out of 5. Next movie I want to talk about is Butler. This is a Bollywood movie and it is about a young woman who finds herself locked in a hotel room with the corpse of her dead lover. She hires a prestigious lawyer to defend her case. The movie started off pretty great with Amitabh Bachchan starring as the lawyer. Taapsee Pannu, who played the role of the woman, didn't really do that good of a job as Amitabh Bachchan, obviously not, but the thing that kind of turned me off was that she only had one emotion throughout the movie. It was very flat. Aside from that, the event rolled out pretty well, but unfortunately they presented like 3 false endings towards the end of it and it just became unnecessarily confusing. That I just gave up. Like, I don't mind movies being confusing. Like, these are the types that whodunit movies that is supposed to make you really confused and like just what the fuck, right? But they have to be able to connect the dots at the end of the movie and say this is what happened and everything else should make sense, which didn't happen in this movie at all. So with this movie, everything trickled from the fact that the mother figured out the girl was somehow involved, which they didn't establish properly in the first place, and after that the story was just a pile of unnecessary confusion which revealed something I already knew. It was a sad 2 out of 5 for me. Next up is Mulan. Where do I even begin? This was probably the worst live-action Disney movie they've ever created. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a great movie as a movie, but this is a remake of Disney's Mulan. If it was a regular movie about a war in China with magic involved, I would have loved it. Because it had like beautiful costumes, beautiful settings, the action is okay, and they had like somewhat acceptable magic system, which would have been fine for me. I wouldn't expect a lot. But this wasn't a war movie. This is Mulan. But in their defense, I think they were looking at Mulan in the review mirror when they announced that there's not going to be a Mushu or a General Shang. And I don't know about you, but Shang was bae when I was a kid. And Mulan was possibly the only relatable Disney character growing up. So when you decide to make a live action, make sure you have the details right, man. Like, I hated this movie. Right off the bat, they've completely changed Mulan's personality, right? She's not the clumsy, tomboy, quirky girl who impulsively makes a decision to go fight in the war in place of her father. This Mulan has magic. She's a badass who can control shit. She's unafraid, unfazed, and a total badass who just goes into war without a second thought. And of course she doesn't have Mushu, which is the biggest mistake they did because you need Mulan's interaction with Mushu to bring out her personality and insecurities. You don't see any of that here. And then there are these important scenes, or lack thereof actually. There are some key scenes in Mulan that we remember so dearly. First one is the scene with the matchmaker. The first time you see that she's not cut to fit into this perfect daughter persona that is expected of her. Then you have the scene where the father accepts the scroll to go join the war. Like, he walks without his cane, the tension and pain in his eyes are like so apparent. like so much character and emotions are depicted in that one scene. But you don't see anything that I mentioned above. The second scene is done so poorly. It's literally just the father walking up to the messenger, taking the scroll and walking back. That is it. And there was no scene to compensate for the training session, like I'll Make a Man or Reuse, that song, like none of the songs were there in the movie, but they didn't even bother to compensate something else. It was just a random training session. And the three friends she makes, they're not there. It's just like random people again. Like even if they were, they clearly didn't make an impact because I don't even remember who these friends are or what they did. And then of course like the main part of the movie where everybody finds out that she's a woman. And I don't even want to talk about it because it's nothing close to what should have happened. And they have that avalanche scene, but again, there's no Mushu, so there's no like, you missed, how could you miss? He was standing right there. You know, that line, it's so funny. We love to see it. It wasn't there. And then the final scene where she comes back with the sword and the medal from the king, and she like hands it to to her father, right? And that line he says, the greatest gift of honor is having you for a daughter. That makes me cry every time I watch it. I know it's an emotional scene for everybody. But in this version, it's just Mulan walking up to her father and he's just saying, I'm so proud of you. Anyway, I think that's enough for Mulan. I gave it 1 out of 5. And then the final one is Ready Player One. This follows a virtual reality called The Oasis, where people prefer to live in their fantasies because the reality has gotten so depressing to live in. When the creator of this video game dies, a virtual competition is created where the winner gets his fortune. This was recommended to me by one of my close friends, and I was pleasantly surprised about this movie. And I actually thought the avatars did a better job portraying the characters than the actors, because I wasn't really a fan of the actors themselves. So that's it with the movies. If I had to pick top 3 from what I've watched, it would definitely be Just Mercy, Golly Boy, and 1917. And I'll also tell you 3 movies that you're better off never watching. That is definitely Mulan, Butler, and The Sun Is Also a Star. So that is it for this video. I'll come back tomorrow to check out the TV shows that I watched. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.